Hi, thanks so much for coming to watch this video. If you don't know who I am, I figure you probably don't know who I am. I'm definitely nothing special. I do have a lot of experience teaching guitar. I've been a guitar teacher for a living for quite a few years now. So there is that at least. But my name is Justin Curran. Welcome here. This is going to be a really quick lesson just on chord changes. We're not going to do a deep dive or anything. I'm just going to give you one tip in particular here. So we're going to use some just really basic chords, keep this simple. This is kind of more of a beginner lesson. So starting out here, just as an example, I'm going to play an E minor chord. You know, that's the second fret of string 5 and the second fret of string 4. If you don't know this chord, so it's an E, a B, and a G. That's the three notes that make up the chord, or the tri that makes up the chord. You don't have to necessarily remember that right now. We're not focusing on that, but just FYI. So play this E minor. You strum all the strings, fretting these notes. Right? And also one other tip, you've probably heard this already if you've been playing guitar for some time. For the best sound out of the note, right? To eliminate fret buzz and just get the clearest sound out of the note, you want to fret right behind the fret, right? So if I'm playing the second fret note E of string 4 here as a quick example, I want to be right behind that fret, not on top of it, right? That's not where you want to be. So you can get that kind of dead note sound. You don't want to be back too far away from it. But obviously when you're playing certain chords, this doesn't always work out that way. There's times where, you have to shift a finger down further away from the fret, and the E minor is a good example of that. So that's why you'll see, because I can't really move my middle finger up here. I mean, I can, but it feels uncomfortable, and it also is really hard to not mute out this low E. So anyway, when I play this, my ring finger's right behind that second fret. My middle finger's backed up a little bit just to be able to fit both of those in there, right? So we're just gonna focus on chord changes, like I said. So I'm gonna strum this E minor. We're gonna keep our strumming extremely simple, right? All we're gonna do is one strum on each chord because we're trying to isolate the chord change. The more you can isolate things, it usually helps you to just progress a lot quicker. At least that's been my experience, and it's been the experience of a lot of my guitar students also through the years. But anyway, so we're gonna play this chord, we're gonna give it a strum, right? And then we're going to go to a G chord. All right, so one big tip here I want to mention that I don't hear talked about a whole lot or really much at all, and I'm sure there are people mentioning this. There's guitar teachers mentioning this, I'm sure. It's not like I came up with this on my own, I would imagine, but it's not something I've heard at least. But anyway, so whenever you go to this G chord that we're going to go to, you want to go ahead and start forming the shape of the chord before you even really get to the notes you're fretting to make that chord. So in other words, I'm going to play this E minor, just in the case of this example, play this E minor, and then when I go to play my G, you can see before I'm even touching the strings, I'm forming the shape of the G to where basically I just sit down my fingers and I have my G, right? And keep your economy of motion in mind, as it's called. And that just means, if you don't know, that just means use the least amount of movement possible, right? Really at all times, because any extra movement you have that you don't need while playing, it doesn't matter what you're playing, it doesn't really do you any good, right? It just honestly makes things harder. So smallest amount of movements with both hands, really, with your strumming hand. I just want to mention that. I know we're not doing anything like crazy strumming wise or anything right now, but just to point that out. So play this E minor, and then your G, like I said, I'm just forming the shape before I even get there is the easiest way I know how to describe this. So I'm gonna put this up to the camera just to show this. There's my E minor, and then I'm forming that G shape, and boom, I'm just right there on it, right? Right to the G. Just like that. And honestly, just do that one strum, and then strum the next chord. Just focus on the change itself, especially if there's a certain, chord change between two chords, for example, that you especially struggle with. Just sit there and literally practice changing between those two chords. And honestly, just make it as simple as possible. And you can progress a lot doing this, even without a ton of practice time. And I'm a big advocate for practicing a lot. I practice a lot. Don't be wrong, the more you practice, you will get better, but I'm saying you can practice, consistency is the most important thing. You can practice a little bit every day, and just that habit of doing it every day, you will get better, especially early on. You will progress really quickly, even with a short practice session every day. Anyway, though, back into what we're talking about, chord changes. Let's do another example, and then we'll probably call it a day when we end this lesson. That'll be it, right? So let's use your C chord. So your C chord is string 5, 3rd fret. That's your C root note. So you're going to put your ring finger there. String 4, 2nd fret with your middle. That's your E note. String 3 is played open. It's an open G. String 2, 1st fret is your C, your higher octave C in the chord, and then you have a higher octave E, which is string 1 open. So we're playing from string 5 down. Just want to mention this in case you don't know these chords. It's just the C, E, and G. That's your C major triad. So you're just playing those 3 notes in different octaves, basically. But again, like I said, I'm just mentioning some things as we go along. We're mostly focusing on chord changes, right? So we play a C, and then we're going to a D for the case of this example. Again, same concept. Use the smallest amount of movement possible and form the shape of the chord before you even get there. Honestly, just think of it that way, right? Because if you, and this is something that'll just get better as you practice it. When you first try this, if you haven't worked on your chord changes much, yeah, it might be a little bit of a struggle. I just want to point that out. You're not going to be able to just fluently right away, right? So it'll take a little bit of time, don't be wrong, but just think of it that way. Start trying your best to form that chord shape before you even get to where you're fretting the notes. It's the easiest way to think about it, in my opinion. So that's it. So the C to the D again, really simple chord change, right? Just make it as easy as possible on yourself. So smallest movement possible, forming the shape of the D and just setting it down, right? And in case you don't know real quick, your D chord here, you're fretting string 3, 2nd fret with your index, that's your A note. String 2, 3rd fret with your ring finger, and string 1, 2nd fret with your middle. So you're playing D, A, and F sharp, that's your D major triad, or essentially it's just the 3 notes that make up the D major chord. So we're strumming from string 4 down, that's your open D root note. Just like that, right? I call this, to some of my younger students, I refer to this as the Mickey Mouse chord, just because it's an easy way to remember it. And this is, it doesn't really look like Mickey Mouse, obviously, but it's just kind of an easy way to think about it. If you think about this being his ears and this is his head, just how these fingers are on each side of the ring finger in a way, if that makes sense. Anyway, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it this far. Like I said, we're just keeping it simple today. Just really isolate those chord changes. Play your E minor to G, back and forth. And when you first do this, you may have a little space between the chord changes, maybe more like this. That's totally normal for everybody, honestly, at first. The more you practice this, the more that space will kind of just take care of itself. Yeah, so thank you so much. We'll call it a day here. If you are new to guitar or whatever, or if you've been playing for a while, you're trying to brush up on your chord changes, just practice this. You can use it with any chord, any chord change. It doesn't have to be the ones that I showed you. You can use it with any chord. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you all again soon.